Chapter 1. Leadership doesn't begin when someone gives you a title. It begins when you decide to see the world differently. The first and most powerful transformation in your journey from worker to leader is a shift in mindset. It's not about how much power you have. It's about how much responsibility you're willing to take. A worker waits for instructions, creates direction. A worker asks, "What do I need to do?" while a leader asks, "What needs to be done?" This simple difference changes everything. The mindset of a leader is built on ownership, awareness, and purpose. It's not about escaping your current job or role. It's about changing how you think inside that role. A leader can be anyone: a student leading a group project, an employee improving a small process, a parent guiding their family, or a friend inspiring others to do better. Leadership isn't about hierarchy. It's about initiative. When you think like a leader, you stop being limited by what's written in your job description. You start seeing possibilities where others see problems. You begin to understand that no one owes you success. It's something you create, are not born special. They are built through self-belief, decisions, and consistent action. Every leader you admire once started where you are now, facing uncertainty, pressure, and doubt. But what set them apart was not talent or luck. It was the way they chose to think. They didn't think like workers chasing approval. They thought like leaders shaping change. Mindset shift begins with self-awareness. Ask yourself, what are my thoughts when things go wrong? Do I blame others or take ownership? I see challenges as obstacles or as opportunities to grow. The way you answer reveals your mindset. Workers avoid discomfort. Leaders grow through it. Workers see tasks. Leaders see impact. Workers wait for opportunities. Leaders create them. The power of leadership lies in responsibility, not authority. Once you begin to take full ownership of your results, good or bad, you begin to step into leadership. Responsibility doesn't mean control over everything. It means control over yourself, your effort, your reaction, and your learning. This is the foundation of growth. Most people live on autopilot. They go to work, complete tasks, collect a paycheck, and repeat the cycle. But leaders live intentionally. They ask deeper questions. They want to understand the why behind everything they do. They think beyond the present moment. That's why leadership starts in the mind long before it's visible in actions. You can be in the lowest position in a company and still think like a leader if you bring ideas, solutions, and positive energy to the table. You can be a student and still lead by example if you inspire others to act better. The truth is, leadership is not about the title above your name, about the mindset within your heart. The mindset of a worker is limited by fear of failure, rejection, or judgment. But the mindset of a leader is guided by courage, the courage to act, to take risks, to face uncertainty, and to trust in one's ability to learn and grow. Leaders don't see failure as an end, they see it as feedback. They don't wait for permission, they create opportunities through purpose and persistence. Thinking like a leader means training your mind to look for lessons in every experience. Every challenge becomes a classroom, every mistake a teacher, every obstacle a test of character. The world doesn't reward those who only work hard, it rewards those who think smart and act with purpose. The mindset shift also requires patience. Leadership doesn't happen overnight. You will fail, you will doubt yourself, you will question if you're capable. But that's the process. Growth is uncomfortable because it requires you to outgrow your old self. Each time you take responsibility instead of blaming others, each time you act instead of waiting, Each time you think about long-term impact instead of short-term reward, you are building the mind of a leader. This mindset will make you stand out in any crowd, because while others are focused on what they can get, you'll be focused on what you can give. While others look for direction, you'll create it. While others complain about problems, you'll search for solutions. That's the difference that changes lives. A worker's identity depends on external approval, but a leader's identity is built on internal purpose. That's why leadership is freeing. It removes you from the prison of waiting for others to validate your worth. When you think like a leader, confidence comes not from praise but from progress. You stop chasing perfection and start pursuing growth. You realize that every situation, no matter how small, is a chance to lead, to show integrity, courage, and initiative. Thinking like a leader changes how you see your time, your work, relationships. You stop asking, "What do I have to do?" and start asking, "How can I make this better?" You become the kind of person who uplifts others, who solves problems, and who adds value wherever they go. And soon, begin to notice. Not because you demanded attention, but because your mindset radiates leadership. Remember, this leadership isn't a promotion, a decision. The moment you choose to think differently, act differently, take ownership of your impact, that's the moment you step into leadership. The mindset shift is the seed that grows into greatness. Nurture it with discipline, water it with learning, and protect it from negativity. Because once you truly learn to think like a leader, never go back to being a worker. You'll be forever focused on growth, vision, and purpose. This is where your journey begins in your mind. Change how you think, and you will change everything. Chapter 2. Every great leader begins with a vision, clear mental picture of a future that does not yet exist but feels so real that it pulls them forward every single day. Vision is the difference between working for survival and working for purpose. Is what separates those who simply complete tasks from those who create movements. To think like a leader, not a worker, you must learn to see beyond your current role, your daily routine, and your immediate results. A worker sees only the job in front of them. A leader sees the direction that job is taking them. Vision gives meaning to effort. It transforms routine into purpose and labor into legacy. Without vision, effort feels endless and meaningless. With vision, every effort becomes a step toward something greater. Vision is not about fantasy or daydreaming. It is about clarity of direction. It is the art of seeing things not as they are, but as they could be. The truth is, everyone can have a vision, but few people choose to define one. Most people drift through life reacting to circumstances, waiting for opportunities, or following the crowd. But leaders don't drift, they design. They don't wait for opportunities, they create them. A leader looks beyond what is happening and imagines what could happen. Vision gives you the courage to step out of comfort zones, to keep going when the road gets tough, and to inspire others even when results are not visible yet. Think about it: every invention, every movement, every successful organization, every remarkable change in history began with a vision. Someone's ability to imagine something better and believe it was possible. The worker focuses on finishing the day, the leader focuses on shaping the future. A leader's vision acts like a compass, keeping them aligned when the storms of life try to push them off course. Vision is what keeps you consistent when motivation fades. It reminds you of why you started when the challenges feel overwhelming. The difference between leaders and workers isn't intelligence. It's imagination with purpose. Leaders visualize not just where they want to go, but also who they need to become to get there. Vision is not just about success, it's about growth, contribution, and impact. It's about seeing yourself as someone capable of making a difference and then walking toward that belief every day. When you have vision, stop chasing shortcuts. You realize that real progress takes time, patience, and consistency. Vision helps you see beyond today's pain to tomorrow's potential. It allows you to keep faith when circumstances are against you because you know what you are working toward. Workers often say, "I'll believe it when I see it." But leaders say, "I'll see it until I believe it." That's the power of perspective. The leader's vision is a fire within, something that cannot be extinguished by temporary failures or doubts. It keeps burning quietly even when no one else believes. Vision gives your work emotional energy. It pushes you to go further, to improve, to learn, innovate. It changes your mindset from, "I have to do this," to, "I get to do this." When you see your work as part of something meaningful, becomes joy. But vision without action is only imagination. The real test of leadership is to turn vision into movement, to make others see what you see, to take that invisible dream and build it piece by piece through action, communication, and persistence. That's why vision must be clear, strong, and connected to your values. If your vision is only about money, it will fade the moment success feels hard. But if your vision is rooted in purpose, in contribution, growth, and meaning, it will stay alive even through hardship. Leaders carry their vision like a torch in the dark. It not only guides them but lights the path for others. People are drawn to vision. They follow those who see further, who make them feel part of something greater than themselves. That's how leaders inspire without force. They offer direction, clarity, and belief. A true leader's vision isn't selfish, it includes others. It says, "Together, we can create something extraordinary." That's why leadership is not about control. It's about invitation. A leader invites others into a story worth living. Workers often limit their thinking to their position. This is my job, this is my task, is my role. But leaders expand their vision. How can this job help me grow? How can my role make a bigger impact? How can I use my skills to change something for the better? Vision transforms ordinary work into extraordinary purpose. When you approach your job with vision, even the smallest tasks become meaningful because they are connected to a larger goal. You begin to see your effort as part of a bigger picture. You stop working for approval and start working for fulfillment. You start to lead, not because you are told to, but because your vision demands it. Vision also requires courage. The courage to see what others don't, to believe what others doubt, and to keep going when others give up. Vision will often make you feel alone, because not everyone can see what you see, but that's okay. Leadership is not about being understood by everyone, it's about being guided by purpose even when you stand alone. Great leader has walked through seasons of doubt, criticism, and uncertainty, yet their vision kept them steady. The clearer your vision, the stronger your leadership. The moment your why becomes bigger than your fears, you become unstoppable. Your vision becomes your power, your discipline, your focus. It teaches you patience, persistence, and resilience. Vision gives you identity. It reminds you of who you are and what you stand for. So, if you want to think like a leader, not a worker, start building your vision. Ask yourself, what do I truly want to create? What difference do I want to make? How do I want to be remembered? Write your vision. Speak it. Believe it. Protect it from negativity. Feed it with learning and effort every single day, because when you hold a strong vision in your heart, you stop living by circumstance and start living by design. You no longer just exist. You lead. You don't just work. You create. And that's the secret every leader knows. The power to lead begins not in the hands, in the mind's ability to see beyond the job, beyond the moment, beyond the ordinary, to a future that only you can imagine, and only your courage can reach. Chapter 3. There comes a moment in every person's journey when they must choose between simply doing what they are told and taking true ownership of what they do. This moment is where leaders are born. Leadership doesn't begin when someone assigns you responsibility. It begins when you assign it to yourself. Ownership means treating every task, every challenge, and every goal as if it carries your name, your reputation, and your future. Worker obeys orders because it's required, but a leader takes ownership because it's who they are. The difference is simple but profound. Obedience is reactive, ownership is proactive. When you live with an ownership mindset, you stop waiting for others to tell you what needs to be done. You start seeing what must be done, and act before being asked. You no longer work to avoid mistakes, you work to create impact. Workers see limits, leaders see possibilities. Workers follow instructions, leaders follow purpose. Ownership is not about control. It's about accountability. It's about understanding that every outcome you produce, every result you achieve, every mistake you make, is connected to the choices you make and the effort you give. Once you begin to take ownership, excuses lose their power. You stop saying, "It wasn't my fault," and start asking, "What could I have done better?" This shift transforms your entire life. Ownership builds character. It builds trust. It builds respect. Are drawn to those who take responsibility rather than those who avoid it. When you take ownership, you earn credibility, not because you're perfect, but because you're honest, consistent, and dependable. A true leader doesn't hide behind excuses or blame. They step forward even when things go wrong and say, "The responsibility is mine, I will fix it." That attitude changes everything. It earns loyalty, admiration, and trust. Ownership is power because it puts you in control of your outcomes. When you blame others, you give away that power. When you take responsibility, you take control of your destiny. Many people spend their lives following orders, checking boxes, and doing only what's expected of them. But leaders rise above that. They do more than they're paid for. They care more than they're required to, and they deliver more than what's asked. They see their work not as a duty, but as a reflection of their identity. When you truly own something, you don't need supervision, you need opportunity. Ownership turns you from an employee into an entrepreneur of your own actions. It doesn't matter whether you work for someone else or for yourself. Your sense of ownership defines how far you'll go. Leaders with ownership don't say, "That's not my job." They say, "If it affects the goal, it's my responsibility." That simple mindset creates progress where others create excuses. The more ownership you take, the more capable you become. You learn faster because you take initiative. You grow faster because you reflect on your mistakes. You influence others because they see your dedication and integrity. A person with ownership doesn't need to be told to improve. They constantly seek ways to make things better because they care about results, not just tasks. Obedience is important in the early stages of learning, but obedience without ownership creates limitation. When you only obey, you follow someone else's vision. When you take ownership, you create your own. Leaders never outgrow learning, but they do outgrow dependency. They learn to follow principles, not just instructions. They understand the purpose behind what they do, and that's why they can lead others effectively. Ownership also means emotional responsibility. It means not letting your circumstances control your mood, not blaming others for your frustrations, not waiting for someone else to motivate you. Leaders understand that self-discipline is a form of ownership. You own your attitude, your reaction, your energy. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control how you respond. That's where true strength comes from. Ownership transforms fear into confidence because it gives you clarity. You know that success or failure depends on your effort, your mindset, persistence. When things go wrong, a worker hides, but a leader steps forward. When things go right, a worker waits for recognition, but a leader gives credit to the team. Ownership removes ego and replaces it with integrity. It's not about taking all the glory, about taking all the responsibility. That's what makes leadership rare and respected. Ownership also builds discipline. When you take ownership of your goals, you stop making excuses for procrastination. You show up even when you don't feel like it. You deliver results not because someone is watching, but because you expect excellence from yourself. Ownership makes you unstoppable because your motivation no longer depends on external approval. You work from within. You set your own standards. You push yourself because you know your name is on the outcome. And when you live that way, people start to trust you. They start to see you as a leader, not because of your position, but because of your principles. The world rewards those who take ownership. In every organization, in every team, the people who rise are the ones who go beyond their duties, who solve problems without being asked, and who own both their mistakes and their victories. Ownership creates leaders because it forces growth. It makes you face reality, deal with pressure, and learn resilience. Every time you take responsibility for something outside your comfort zone, you expand your capacity to lead. And here's the truth: ownership is contagious. When you take ownership, others around you begin to do the same. Your attitude sets the tone. You inspire accountability, integrity, pride in those who work with you. That's how real leadership spreads. Not through commands, but through example. To think like a leader, you must stop seeking approval for doing the minimum and start holding yourself accountable for doing the maximum. Don't wait for someone to tell you what's wrong, see it and fix it. Don't wait for permission to improve. Do it because you care. Don't wait to be in charge to act like a leader. Lead because it's who you are. Ownership is the highest form of freedom. Once you accept that your life is your responsibility, no one can hold you back. Are no longer a victim of circumstance. You become the creator of outcomes. That's what separates leaders from workers. Leaders live by design, not by default. So take a moment today and ask yourself, do I obey because I must, or do I take ownership because I choose to? The answer to that question defines your future. Ownership is not the easy road. It's the road of courage, integrity, and growth. But once you walk it, you'll never want to go back. Because when you truly live with ownership, you stop being a part of the system and start shaping it. Stop being a worker waiting for direction, and you become a leader creating it. Chapter 4. Every leader, at some point in their journey, comes face to face with the most powerful force that defines destiny. The power of decision. Decisions shape lives, define character, and build legacies. The moment you decide who you are and what you stand for, everything else in your life begins to align. The difference between a worker and a leader is not skill or experience. It is the ability to make clear, confident, and timely decisions. Workers wait to be told what to do because they fear the responsibility that comes with choosing. Leaders, on the other hand, take that responsibility willingly. They understand that indecision is the silent thief of progress. The power of decision is not about always being right. It's about being courageous enough to act even when the outcome is uncertain. Every successful leader you admire, every innovator, creator, or visionary, has reached their position not because they avoided mistakes, because they decided to move when others hesitated. Leadership requires motion, and motion requires decisions. The world rewards those who dare to decide, for decision is the seed of action. Without decision, dreams remain thoughts, and potential remains wasted. The truth is, life is shaped not by what happens to us but by how we decide to respond to it. Every crossroad demands a choice, whether to stay the same or grow, retreat or rise, to doubt or believe. Leaders understand that indecision is worse than a wrong decision, because a wrong decision can be corrected, but hesitation destroys momentum. A worker seeks perfect information before moving. A leader makes progress with the information they have, their intuition, experience, and values to guide them forward. Decision-making is the ultimate test of confidence. It forces you to confront fear, uncertainty, and doubt. But every time you make a decision with conviction, you strengthen your leadership muscle. Leaders are not reckless, they are decisive. They gather the facts, they weigh the risks, they listen to others. But when it's time to act, they act, because they know that leadership means carrying the weight of choices, even unpopular ones. Workers avoid blame, leaders accept it. That's why true leadership feels heavy. It demands accountability for every decision you make, and even for those you choose not to make. The greatest danger in leadership is not making bad choices. It's refusing to make any. Many people live trapped in what if. They wait for the perfect time, the perfect plan, the perfect guarantee. But leaders know that perfection never arrives. They create progress through decisions and adapt along the way. Every decisive action creates clarity, while hesitation breeds confusion. When you make a firm decision, you tell your mind what to focus on, and energy flows in that direction. The universe rewards movement. Every decision you make is a declaration of belief in yourself, in your purpose, in your ability to influence the outcome. That's why decisive people seem confident. They trust themselves to handle whatever comes next. Workers think, what if this fails? Leaders think, what if this works? This shift in perspective defines success. Decision-making is also about priorities. A leader knows they cannot do everything, so they decide what truly matters. They focus energy on high-impact actions rather than scattering it across endless tasks. This focus creates results that compound over time. Leadership decisions are rarely easy. They often involve risk, sacrifice, and emotional courage. Sometimes you must choose between comfort and growth, between pleasing others and doing what's right. The power of decision lies in your ability to choose purpose over popularity. A leader who tries to please everyone ends up pleasing no one. Decisions require conviction. You must be willing to stand alone, to trust your judgment, and to accept the outcome with grace. This doesn't mean stubbornness. It means resilience. Even when your decision leads to failure, you don't collapse under the weight of regret. You learn and move again. Every decision, good or bad, teaches you something valuable. Workers fear mistakes. Leaders see them as feedback. Decision-making sharpens wisdom, because only through experience can we learn what truly works. The more decisions you make, the better you become at making them. You start to see patterns, sense risks faster, and anticipate consequences before they appear. That's why leadership requires boldness. You cannot inspire others to act if you yourself are paralyzed by fear. Your team, your peers, followers, they all look to your decisiveness as a source of stability. When you decide with clarity, others gain confidence to follow. Your full attention leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to choose a direction. The power of decision also extends beyond big moments. You make small choices that shape your path. What you read, how you speak, how you react, and who you surround yourself with. These daily decisions define your growth far more than occasional grand gestures. The discipline to decide consistently builds a mindset of ownership and self-trust. The more you practice deciding, the more you eliminate hesitation. Soon, you stop doubting your ability to choose. You begin to move through life with conviction, and that conviction becomes magnetic. People follow leaders who know where they are going, even if the path is uncertain. A worker looks for direction, a leader provides it. But remember, decision-making also requires humility. Not every decision will bring success, and that's okay. What matters is not being perfect but being accountable. A leader admits mistakes quickly, learns from them, and pivots with strength. Decision without reflection leads to arrogance, but decision with reflection leads to growth. The goal is not to avoid wrong turns. It's to keep moving forward, learning with every step. The greatest leaders are not those who never fail, but those who never stop deciding. Because decision is progress, and progress is leadership. The power of decision also builds emotional strength. When you make tough choices and live with them, you develop resilience. You become less affected by doubt and external noise. You stop seeking permission to act and start trusting your inner compass. This is where real confidence is born, not from ego, but from experience. You learn that your destiny is not written by chance, but by choice. Turning point in your life. Every promotion, every opportunity, every breakthrough was triggered by a decision you made, big or small. That's why indecision is dangerous. It delays your destiny. The worker mentality says, "I'll see what happens." The leader mentality says, "I'll make it happen." Leadership begins when you stop waiting and start deciding. Every decision you make sends a message to yourself, to others, the universe, that you are ready to lead. So, don't fear the weight of your choices, embrace it. Each decision is a step toward the person you're meant to become. Don't wait for clarity, create it. Don't wait for permission, give it to yourself. Don't wait for certainty, trust your purpose. Because the moment you begin deciding with conviction is the moment you stop being a worker who follows and start being a leader who defines the path ahead. Chapter 5. The true essence of leadership is not just in what you think or what you do, but in how effectively you communicate it. Communication is the bridge between vision and action, between intention and understanding. It is through words, tone, and presence that leaders move hearts, influence minds, and build trust. The difference between a worker and a leader often lies not in effort, but in expression. A worker speaks to be heard, while a leader speaks to create change. Communication with purpose is not about talking more. It's about talking with clarity, conviction, and compassion. Is about understanding that every word you speak carries energy, and that energy has the power to inspire or discourage, to connect or divide. A leader uses communication not as a weapon, but as a tool of alignment. They understand that how they communicate determines how others feel, think, and act. Leadership communication starts with listening. Great leaders listen more than they speak, not because they lack opinions, but because they value understanding. They listen not just to reply, but to comprehend. They read between words, sense emotions, and pay attention to silence. This kind of deep listening builds trust, and trust is the foundation of leadership. Workers often communicate to defend their point, but leaders communicate to build a bridge between perspectives. They know that the purpose of communication is not to win arguments. It's to create understanding and direction. The leader's voice is calm when others panic, clear when others are confused, and hopeful when others feel lost. That's why communication is not just a skill, it's a responsibility. Every time you speak as a leader, you set the tone for your environment. Don't just listen to what you say. They feel how you say it. Your tone, your confidence, presence, they all communicate something beyond words. Leaders communicate vision. They paint pictures of the future so vividly that others can see themselves in it. They don't just describe goals, they tell stories that connect emotionally. Storytelling is one of the most powerful tools of leadership communication because it transforms information into inspiration. People forget facts, but they remember stories. A worker might explain the task, but a leader shares the meaning behind it. That meaning turns work into purpose, and purpose turns effort into passion. Communication with purpose means being intentional about every message you send. Whether it's in a meeting or a conversation, it means asking yourself, what do I want this person to feel, understand, do after this interaction? Leaders know that communication is not measured by how much they speak, but by how much they're understood. Miscommunication is often the reason behind conflict, confusion, and failure. A leader takes responsibility for clarity. They don't blame others for misunderstanding. They simplify complexity. They translate ideas into action, repeat the message until it becomes culture. Workers say, I told them. Leaders ask, did they understand? That's the difference between communication for compliance and communication for connection. A leader's words carry weight because they are backed by integrity. When people trust your character, your words become powerful. But without trust, even the best message falls flat. That's why communication must align with action. What you say and what you do must never contradict each other. Consistency builds credibility. If your words are strong but your actions are weak, people will stop listening. Tone inspires but your behavior disappoints. Your leadership influence will fade. The greatest communicators lead by example before they ever speak. They communicate through actions that speak louder than any speech. Purpose-driven communication also requires emotional intelligence. Leaders must understand the emotions of their audience and adjust their message accordingly. Communication is not one size fits all. A true leader knows when to speak firmly and when to show empathy, when to challenge and when to encourage. They adapt their style to fit the moment without compromising authenticity. Authenticity is the soul of leadership communication. It's what makes people believe you. When you speak with honesty, vulnerability, and sincerity, you connect with people on a human level. Workers communicate to impress. Leaders communicate to connect. That's why the best leaders aren't always the most charismatic. They are the most genuine. They make others feel seen, heard, and valued. A leader's communication should always elevate others. It should make people feel capable, trusted, and inspired to do better. Harsh words may create fear. Kind, firm, and purposeful communication creates loyalty. Leaders understand that the words they choose can either build a culture of collaboration or destroy it. Every word counts. Every tone matters. Every silence speaks. Communication is also the leader's greatest tool for resolving conflict. Instead of avoiding uncomfortable conversations, leaders approach them with honesty and respect. They don't communicate to accuse. They communicate to solve. They understand that unresolved conflict poisons trust, and trust is the oxygen of leadership. So, they address issues early, clearly, and compassionately. Don't hide behind authority. They lean on empathy. Communication with purpose means leading conversations that open minds, not close them. It means being transparent when it's difficult, truthful when it's uncomfortable, and calm when emotions run high. This is what earns respect. The leader who communicates with wisdom and restraint earns the loyalty of those they lead. Communication is also the way leaders pass on vision across generations. They speak not just for today's tasks, but for tomorrow's possibilities. They use words to plant seeds of belief in others, to help them see what they cannot yet see in themselves. The greatest gift a leader can give through communication is belief that growth is possible, that challenges can be overcome, and that each person has value in the bigger picture. Communication with purpose transforms workplaces into communities, and followers into believers, ideas into movements. So, if you want to think like a leader, not a worker, you must master the art of purposeful communication. Speak less to impress and more to express. Listen not just to respond but to understand. Choose words that heal, build, and inspire. Be intentional with your tone and truthful with your message. Lead with your heart when you speak from your mouth. Remember, communication defines your leadership. People may forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. So, speak like a leader, clear, calm, and full of conviction. Because leadership is not about having the loudest voice. It's about having the most meaningful one. And when your communication carries purpose, your words become more than sound. They become the spark that lights the way for others to follow. Chapter 6: Leadership is not only about strategy, vision, or authority, it is about connection. The ability to understand, influence, and inspire people on an emotional level. Emotional intelligence is the invisible strength that separates leaders who simply manage from those who truly move others. It is the capacity to recognize your own emotions, understand the emotions of others, and use that awareness to guide behavior and relationships effectively. A worker may complete tasks efficiently, but a leader must understand people deeply. Emotional intelligence is the foundation of that understanding. It allows leaders to build trust, create harmony, and motivate people from within rather than through pressure or control. The leader who masters emotional intelligence leads not through fear, but through empathy. They don't demand respect. They earn it. They don't manipulate emotions. They manage them with wisdom and integrity. Leadership without emotional intelligence is like a body without a heartbeat. May move, but it lacks life. The ability to lead hearts begins with self-awareness. Before you can understand others, you must understand yourself. Self-awareness is the mirror of leadership. It reflects your emotions, strengths, weaknesses, and triggers. It helps you recognize how your mood affects your tone, your energy, and your decisions. Many people act on emotion without realizing it. They react out of anger, fear, or pride, and those reactions destroy trust and respect. But emotionally intelligent leaders pause before they respond. They don't let emotions control them. They control their emotions. That doesn't mean they suppress feelings. It means they master them. They can feel anger without becoming destructive, feel fear without becoming paralyzed, and feel stress without losing composure. This calm control is what earns them credibility during chaos. When everyone else loses balance, the emotionally intelligent leader becomes the anchor. People follow those who remain centered when storms hit. Emotional intelligence is not about being soft. It's about being strong enough to stay kind, composed, and compassionate under pressure. It's about having the strength to understand that leadership is not about power over people, but about power with people. The second element of emotional intelligence is self-regulation. The art of managing your impulses. Leaders who react impulsively, shout under stress, or make decisions in anger damage their influence. Self-regulation allows you to lead with consistency and fairness. It gives you control over your emotions instead of being controlled by them. When people see that you remain composed under pressure, they begin to trust your leadership even more. They know that you can handle challenges without letting ego or emotion cloud your judgment. Third pillar is empathy. The ability to feel what others feel. Empathy does not mean agreeing with everyone. It means understanding where they are coming from. Workers may focus on their own tasks, but leaders must focus on people. They must listen beyond words, read emotions between silences, and sense unspoken pain or motivation. A leader with empathy creates an atmosphere of belonging. When people feel understood, they feel valued, and when they feel valued, they give their best. Leaders who ignore emotions end up managing compliance. Leaders who embrace empathy inspire commitment. Empathy allows you to guide people, not just by direction, but by connection. It turns leadership into a partnership, where people follow not because they have to, but because they want to. Emotional intelligence also requires social awareness. The ability to read the emotional climate of a team, an organization, or a situation. A leader with social awareness can sense tension before it turns into conflict, can detect disengagement before it becomes resignation, and can spot potential before it's recognized by others. They have emotional radar that helps them respond wisely instead of reacting blindly. They know when to push, when to pause, and when to praise. This awareness keeps the team aligned and motivated. Without it, leaders can unknowingly create distance, resentment, or fear. Emotional intelligence teaches leaders that leadership is not about forcing outcomes. It's about guiding people toward them. The fifth and most dynamic aspect of emotional intelligence is relationship management. The ability to build, nurture, and sustain healthy connections. Great leaders invest time and emotion into their relationships. They don't see people as tools for success. They see them as partners in purpose. They communicate openly, encourage feedback, and resolve conflict with respect. They lift others up instead of tearing them down. Relationship management is the skill that allows leaders to create teams that function like families, where trust replaces fear, and collaboration replaces competition. Emotionally intelligent leaders don't micromanage, they empower. They trust their people to perform because they have created an environment of mutual respect. They understand that leadership is about growing others, not just achieving goals. Emotional intelligence transforms the workplace from a system of orders into a community of shared purpose. It turns stress into strength and differences into diversity. A leader with high emotional intelligence knows that every human being carries unseen struggles, dreams, and emotions, and that treating people with understanding brings out their best. Emotional intelligence also shapes how leaders handle failure. When things go wrong, emotionally intelligent leaders don't lash out or blame others. They take responsibility, analyze calmly, and encourage learning. They know that shame kills initiative, while understanding builds resilience. They model emotional maturity by showing that failure is not the end, but feedback. Workers react emotionally to setbacks, leaders respond thoughtfully. They use adversity as a lesson in growth, not as an excuse for frustration. The power of emotional intelligence is also seen in communication. Leaders who understand emotions speak differently. They use words that inspire, not wound. They know when to be firm and when to be gentle. They understand that people may forget instructions, but they never forget how a leader made them feel. That emotional imprint defines loyalty. Emotional intelligence turns authority into influence because it allows a leader to touch hearts as well as minds. It gives leadership its humanity. A team will follow a knowledgeable leader for a while, but they will follow an emotionally intelligent leader for life. Why? They feel safe, seen, and supported. The emotionally intelligent leader knows that logic wins arguments, but empathy wins people, and leadership is about people. It's about being able to lift others up emotionally while guiding them mentally. So, to think like a leader, not a worker, must learn to lead from the heart as much as from the head. You must understand that leadership is emotional labor. It requires patience, self-control, humility and compassion. It's not weakness to care deeply, it's wisdom to connect genuinely. Because at the end of every strategy, system, or goal, there is always a human being. And only when you learn to lead those human hearts with emotional intelligence will you truly embody the kind of leadership that changes not just results, but lives. Chapter 7 Leadership is defined not by how many decisions you make, but by the quality, timing, and courage behind them. True leader understands that every decision, big or small, carries the power to shape the future. While a worker waits for instructions, a leader steps forward to decide, to choose direction when others hesitate. Decision-making is the heartbeat of leadership. It reveals your character, your vision, and your confidence. To think like a leader, not a worker, you must learn to decide not out of fear, but out of purpose. Decision-making is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing enough to move forward with conviction. Many people get trapped in the illusion of certainty, waiting for the perfect information, the perfect time, or the perfect plan before acting. But leadership demands movement, not perfection. A worker hesitates, fearing mistakes. A leader understands that indecision is the greatest mistake of all. Great leaders know that clarity does not come before action. It comes through action. They analyze, they assess, but they don't freeze. They balance logic with intuition, facts with foresight. Decision-making begins with understanding your values and purpose, because without a compass, no amount of information will guide you in the right direction. Leaders with strong principles make decisions that align with who they are and what they stand for. They know what's non-negotiable. Their values act as a North Star when choices become complicated. Workers often focus on what's right for me, but leaders focus on what's right for the mission. This shift from self-interest to shared purpose transforms ordinary choices into acts of integrity. Good decision-making also requires emotional discipline. Leaders face pressure, uncertainty, and conflicting opinions. In those moments, emotions can cloud judgment, turning confidence into arrogance or caution into fear. An emotionally intelligent leader remains calm, grounded, and objective. Let anger, ego, or panic drive their choices. They pause, reflect, and then act with intent. They understand that leadership decisions are rarely easy. They often involve trade-offs, sacrifices and risk. But courage is not the absence of fear, the ability to move forward despite it. Every decision involves risk, and leaders accept that reality. They do not seek safety, they seek progress. A worker looks for comfort, a leader looks for truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Leaders trust their instincts because instincts are built from experience, reflection, and awareness. The more decisions you make, the sharper your intuition becomes. That's why indecision kills growth. It denies you the lessons that only experience can teach. Decision-making also demands perspective. Leaders gather input, but they don't get lost in opinions. They consult, they listen, they weigh different viewpoints. But in the end, they own the final choice. Workers rely on consensus, leaders rely on conviction. A leader values feedback, but they never allow the fear of disagreement to silence their judgment. They know that leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It's about serving the greater vision. True leaders are not impulsive, but they are decisive. They know when to decide fast and when to wait. Timing is everything. Some decisions demand immediate action, while others require patience and observation. Wisdom lies in knowing the difference. A worker might rush to appear active, but a leader moves with purpose. Understanding that every decision is a statement of direction. Each choice you make either builds your credibility or weakens it. Leaders who change decisions constantly lose trust, while those who stand firm on thoughtful choices build respect. Consistency in decision-making shows strength, flexibility shows wisdom. A great leader masters both. They adapt when facts change but remain rooted in their vision. Leadership also requires making unpopular decisions. There will be moments when doing what is right means disappointing others, standing alone, or facing criticism. That's the true test of leadership. Workers crave approval, leaders crave progress. They understand that popularity fades, but principles endure. Making tough decisions requires moral courage. The ability to do what's right even when it's not easy or convenient. History remembers leaders who chose principle over comfort, truth over convenience, and long-term growth over short-term gain. A leader's ability to decide under pressure defines their legacy. Decision-making also involves accountability. Leader takes responsibility for both success and failure. They don't shift blame when things go wrong, they learn and lead through it. Accountability gives credibility to authority. When people see that you own your choices, they begin to trust your judgment. Leaders who hide from accountability lose respect, because leadership without responsibility is hollow. Great decision-making also involves clarity of communication. Once a decision is made, a leader must communicate it clearly, confidently, and with purpose. Ambiguity breeds confusion, and confusion breeds fear. People follow clarity, not complexity. A leader explains not only what was decided, but why. This transparency turns decisions into lessons, and lessons into alignment. It helps the team understand the reasoning behind direction, which builds unity and reduces resistance. A worker executes decisions, a leader explains and embodies them. The leader becomes the message, consistent in word, action, and energy. Another dimension of decision-making is adaptability. The best leaders are willing to pivot when circumstances demand it. Stubbornness disguised as strength is a trap. Flexibility is not weakness, intelligence. When data, conditions, or priorities change, leaders must reassess and redirect. But they do so thoughtfully, not reactively. Adaptable leaders see change not as a threat, but as an opportunity to innovate. They make decisions that keep the organization alive and evolving. A rigid mindset makes decisions for yesterday. A visionary mindset makes them for tomorrow. Leadership in the modern world requires this adaptability, the courage to change course without losing direction. Decision making also reveals the leader's belief in others. Empowering people to make decisions at their level is one of the most powerful ways to build ownership and trust. Leaders who hoard decisions weaken their teams. Leaders who share decision-making strengthen them. They create a culture of accountability where everyone thinks like a leader, not just like a worker. This decentralization of authority builds resilience and innovation across the organization. Every decision you delegate is a message of trust. Decision-making also teaches humility. No matter how skilled you are, not every decision will be right. The greatest leaders admit mistakes quickly, correct them courageously, and learn from them deeply. They don't see wrong decisions as failures. They see them as feedback. Leadership is not about being right every time, it's about being responsible every time. So, to think like a leader, you must embrace decision-making as both an art and a discipline. You must learn to balance logic and emotion, courage and caution, patience and urgency. You must decide with vision, not just reaction. Remember, the choices you make today define the story you tell tomorrow. Leadership is not about predicting the future. It's about shaping it through the decisions you make with clarity, courage, and conviction. Every decision is a brushstroke on the canvas of your leadership legacy. So, when the moment comes and all eyes turn to you, do not hesitate. Stand firm, deeply, and decide boldly. Because in that moment, you are not just choosing a path, you are defining who you are as a leader. Chapter 8: Leadership begins with sight, but it thrives with vision. Vision is not simply the ability to see what is in front of you. It is the power to imagine what could be. It is the invisible force that pulls leaders forward when reality seems impossible. And it is the fire that keeps teams motivated when challenges grow heavy. A worker sees the task at hand, but a leader sees the destination ahead. Vision separates the dreamers from the doers from the true leaders who turn dreams into destiny. Every great movement, invention, transformation in history began with one person who dared to see differently. Vision gives meaning to effort and direction to energy. Without vision, becomes motion without purpose, activity without progress. To think like a leader, not a worker, you must develop the habit of seeing beyond the obvious. You must learn to look not just at what is, but at what could be. Vision is the art of seeing potential in people, opportunities in problems, and progress in pain. Where others see limitations, leaders see possibilities. They don't wait for the future, they create it. A leader's vision is the compass that guides their decisions, shapes their culture, and inspires others to believe in something bigger than themselves. Workers follow plans, leaders follow purpose. But vision doesn't appear out of nowhere. It begins with awareness. It comes from paying attention to the world, observing patterns, listening to needs, in the pulse of change. A leader develops vision through curiosity. They ask questions others overlook. They challenge assumptions beyond the surface. Curiosity opens the door to imagination, and imagination fuels vision. The ability to envision a better future requires courage, because vision often looks unrealistic at first. The world resists new ideas until they become inevitable. Every visionary leader has faced doubt, criticism, and resistance. But they persist, not because the world already believes, but because they do. Vision requires conviction, the unshakable belief in what could be, even when the evidence is missing. Workers look for proof before they act. Leaders act to create proof. They have faith in their foresight, and that faith becomes contagious. People don't follow leaders because they are certain. They follow them because they are convinced. Conviction gives vision its strength. Clear vision also demands clarity of purpose. It must answer 3 questions. Where are we going? Why does it matter? How will we get there? Without these, vision becomes a dream instead of a direction. A leader articulates their vision so clearly that others can see it and own it. Vision without communication is just imagination trapped inside one mind. Leaders transform vision into movement by painting a picture vivid enough for everyone to step into. They speak with passion but also with precision. They connect emotion with logic, so people not only understand the goal, they believe in it. Vision must also be grounded in reality, not about ignoring obstacles, but about seeing beyond them. A visionary leader balances optimism with realism. They acknowledge the challenges, but they never let those challenges define the future. They use obstacles as stepping stones to sharpen strategy. A worker sees a problem as the end of progress. A leader sees it as part of the process. That mindset keeps the vision alive even in dark times. Visionary leadership also demands consistency. The world changes fast, distractions are endless, and temptations to quit are strong. But a leader holds the vision steady. They remind their team why they started. They repeat the purpose until it becomes belief. They understand that people forget easily in times of struggle, so they lead by reminding. Vision fades without reinforcement. Leaders keep it alive through words, actions, and unwavering focus. When everyone else loses sight, the leader becomes the torchbearer. Vision gives courage when fear takes over, and direction when chaos surrounds. It transforms uncertainty into possibility. A leader's vision also extends to people. They see potential in others long before those individuals see it in themselves. They look at a team member not for who they are now, but for who they can become. That belief inspires growth. Workers manage people for productivity. Leaders develop people for purpose. They use vision as a mirror that reflects greatness back to others. This kind of leadership builds confidence, loyalty, and transformation. Vision also drives innovation. When you see beyond what exists, you begin to question what's possible. Leaders ask, why not? Instead of, why? They refuse to accept the limits of convention. They explore new ideas, experiment with bold solutions, and embrace change. They are not afraid to fail, because failure is feedback for the next attempt. Visionaries understand that progress requires disruption, and disruption begins with imagination. To sustain a vision, a leader must cultivate persistence. The road between vision and reality is long and rough. There will be setbacks, rejections, and moments of doubt. But the difference between dreamers and doers lies in endurance. Leaders with true vision hold on when others let go. They are driven not by results alone, by purpose. They don't chase applause, they chase impact. Vision is what keeps them moving when motivation fades. They understand that great visions are tested through time, that the reward is not just achieving the dream, but becoming the person capable of creating it. A powerful vision also requires alignment. A leader ensures that every decision, project, and action points toward that larger goal. Alignment creates unity. When everyone moves in the same direction, progress accelerates. Misalignment creates confusion and frustration. Leaders use their vision as the map to realign people and priorities. They remind their teams that every small action connects to something bigger. Vision gives meaning to even the smallest task, because it ties individual effort to collective destiny. Without that connection, work becomes mechanical, work becomes meaningful. Vision also shapes culture. A leader's vision becomes the organization's heartbeat. It influences behavior, mindset, morale. People start thinking in terms of possibility, not limitation. They begin to ask, how can we make this happen? Instead of, can we do this? Vision transforms the environment from reactive to proactive, from compliance to commitment. It creates an atmosphere where innovation thrives and growth feels natural. Ultimately, vision is what gives leadership its power. Titles may give authority, but vision gives influence. People follow leaders not because they have to, but because they want to be part of something extraordinary. Vision is that magnet that attracts hearts and minds toward a shared future. What makes a team more than a group of individuals? It turns them into a movement. To think like a leader, not a worker, you must learn to nurture your vision every day. Read, observe, reflect, and dream. Feed your imagination with learning and your purpose with clarity. Protect your vision from negativity and nurture it with faith. Speak it often. Live it always. Because in the end, vision is not just about seeing the future. It's about believing so deeply in it that you bring it to life. Leaders see what others can't, believe what others doubt, and achieve what others think impossible. That is the power of vision. It transforms not only your future, but the world around you. Chapter 9: Trust is the foundation upon which every lasting relationship, every strong team, and every successful organization is built. Without trust, leadership collapses. It doesn't matter how intelligent, skilled, or visionary a leader may be. If people do not trust you, they will not follow you. Trust is not demanded, it is earned. It cannot be bought or borrowed. It must be built day by day, through consistency, honesty, and integrity. A worker depends on authority to get things done, but a leader depends on trust to inspire action. Trust is the invisible currency that fuels leadership influence. It allows a leader to lead without force, to guide without resistance, correct without resentment. When people trust their leader, they open their minds, share their ideas, and give their best effort. When trust is broken, takes its place, and fear is the enemy of growth, a true leader understands that trust is not a single act, but a continuous relationship between words and actions. It is earned not through perfection, through authenticity. People don't expect leaders to be flawless. They expect them to be real. They want to know that their leader is honest, accountable, and dependable, even in failure. A leader who hides mistakes or shifts blame destroys trust faster than any external enemy ever could. On the other hand, a leader who admits errors and takes responsibility builds credibility. Trust grows in the soil of transparency. When you communicate openly, even about challenges, people respect your honesty. They may not always agree with your decisions, but they will stand by you because they know you are genuine. Workers often think of trust as something that must come from others, but leaders understand that trust begins with themselves. Self-trust is the foundation of all other trust. If you do not believe in your own judgment, integrity, and purpose, you will not lead with confidence. People can sense uncertainty. A leader who doubts themselves radiates hesitation, and hesitation weakens trust. To build trust, you must first become trustworthy within. You must do what you say what you mean, and follow through even when it's hard. Integrity is the heartbeat of trust. It means doing the right thing even when no one is watching. A leader with integrity earns silent respect, while one without it earns loud suspicion. Every decision, every action, every promise contributes to your reputation as a trustworthy leader. When people see you make choices, guided by fairness rather than convenience, honesty rather than manipulation, and principle rather than popularity, they begin to trust not just your words, but your character. Trust also requires consistency. You cannot be kind one day and cruel the next, humble one moment and arrogant the next, truthful in victory and deceptive in defeat. Consistency creates security. People trust what they can predict. A leader whose behavior is steady and reliable provides a sense of safety that encourages others to take risks and innovate. Inconsistent leaders create confusion, and confusion breeds distrust. Workers might fear such leaders, but they will never follow them wholeheartedly. Leader understands that consistency is not rigidity, it's reliability. You can evolve, adapt, and grow, but your values must remain constant. Another pillar of trust is empathy. People trust those who make them feel understood and valued. A leader who listens with compassion, remembers the details of people's lives, who shows genuine care, earns emotional loyalty. Empathy transforms leadership from mechanical management to human connection. When people feel that their leader cares about their well-being, not just their output, they become deeply committed. A worker gives effort for pay, a follower gives heart for trust. The difference lies in emotional connection. To build that connection, a leader must listen more than they speak. They must seek to understand before seeking to be understood. They must make time for people, not just processes. Trust grows strongest in moments of presence, when a leader truly listens, truly supports, and truly stands by their people. Communication also plays a vital role in trust building. The way you speak determines how people perceive your intentions. Honest communication builds trust. Vague or manipulative communication destroys it. A leader should never hide behind jargon or half-truths. They must speak with clarity and sincerity. Even when the truth is uncomfortable, it should be told with respect. People can forgive a mistake, but they cannot forgive deceit. Transparency in communication shows courage and respect for others' intelligence. It invites collaboration instead of compliance. Trust also demands fairness. A leader must treat people equally, giving credit where it's due and addressing mistakes without bias. Favoritism kills trust faster than failure. When people see that you play fair, that effort, honesty, and results matter more than politics, they respect your leadership even more. A trusted leader is impartial, consistent, and principled. Reward integrity, not flattery. They correct behavior, not personalities. Fairness creates a culture of mutual respect, where people know that justice, not manipulation, governs decisions. Building trust also means protecting others' trust in you. Confidentiality is sacred. When someone confides in you, guard that trust like gold. Never use private information as leverage or gossip. Once you betray a confidence, even in small ways, will never feel safe opening up again. A trustworthy leader protects people's dignity behind their backs as much as to their faces. Loyalty is a two-way street. If you want loyalty from others, you must show it first. Another aspect of trust is competence. People trust leaders who know what they're doing. You may have the best intentions, but if you lack skill or discipline, trust will eventually fade. Competence earns confidence. A leader who learns, improves, and makes informed decisions shows that they respect their responsibility. Workers may forgive inexperience, but not carelessness. To build trust, you must continuously grow in knowledge and wisdom. Leadership is not about knowing everything. It's about never stopping the pursuit of learning. The humility to admit that you don't know something and the courage to find the answer build far more trust than pretending to know it all. Trust also thrives on recognition. When leaders appreciate effort, celebrate progress, and acknowledge contributions, they strengthen the emotional bond within a team. Recognition is not flattery, it's validation. It tells people that their work matters. Leaders who withhold recognition create resentment. Those who give it generously build loyalty. Trust deepens when people feel seen, heard, and valued. Finally, the greatest test of trust comes in crisis. When things go wrong, when pressure mounts, when results falter, your reaction reveals your true leadership. A leader who blames others breaks trust instantly. A leader who takes responsibility builds it unshakably. During crises, people look to their leader for reassurance, direction, and courage. If you stay calm, transparent, and compassionate, you will not only maintain trust, you will strengthen it. People never forget how you made them feel in times of uncertainty. Trust built in hardship becomes unbreakable. To think like a leader, not a worker, is to understand that leadership is not built on authority, but on trust. Authority can be given, but trust must be earned. It is the single greatest asset a leader can possess, because it multiplies influence without effort. When people trust you, they follow your vision willingly. They forgive your mistakes quickly, and they support your growth wholeheartedly. But once trust is lost, every word you speak becomes a struggle. So guard it, nurture it, and live by it. Let your words match your deeds, your promises match your performance, and your heart match your leadership. Because in the end, trust is not something you have. It is something you become. When you become trustworthy, you don't just lead, you inspire. Chapter 10. Responsibility is not a burden, it is the backbone of leadership. Separates those who lead from those who simply follow. A worker may see responsibility as something given to them, a task, a duty, an assignment, but a leader sees responsibility as something chosen. It is not something they carry because they have to, but because they want to. Responsibility is the mark of maturity, the sign that a person has moved beyond self-interest to a higher level of purpose. To think like a leader, not a worker, you must learn to embrace responsibility. Not avoid it, not fear it, but welcome it. Great leaders understand that responsibility is not about power or control, it is about ownership. It means owning your actions, your decisions, your results, and even your failures. It means standing tall when things go wrong instead of looking for someone to blame. Leadership begins the moment you stop pointing fingers and start accepting accountability. Workers often say, "It's not my fault," but leaders ask, "What can I do to fix it?" That single shift in thinking changes everything. Responsibility transforms ordinary individuals into dependable pillars others can rely on. It builds trust, respect, and credibility. People follow those who take responsibility because they know such leaders can be counted on. Without responsibility is like a ship without an anchor, directionless and unstable. The willingness to be responsible is what makes leadership real. It's easy to celebrate success, but it takes strength to take responsibility for failure. Great leaders never hide from their mistakes, they learn from them. They don't make excuses, they make improvements. They understand that responsibility is not about being perfect. It's about being accountable. When you take full responsibility for your life and your leadership, you gain control. Blame gives power away, but responsibility gives power back to you. It makes you the author of your story, not the victim of your circumstances. A worker waits for someone else to fix the problem, becomes the solution. Responsibility also demands courage. The courage to make hard decisions, to face consequences, uphold your values even when it's inconvenient. Leadership means carrying the weight that others may shy away from. It means being the first to step up when challenges appear and the last to walk away when times get tough. Leaders carry the invisible weight of expectations, decisions, and outcomes, but they carry it with grace. They understand that leadership is not about comfort. It's about contribution. The greater your sense of responsibility, the greater your impact. Every great leader throughout history has been defined not by their authority, but by their accountability. They stood for something, ownership of their mission, and bore the weight of its results. Responsibility gives leadership its moral foundation. Without it, leadership becomes manipulation or ego. A responsible leader does not seek credit, they seek outcomes. They do not hide behind excuses, they face the truth. Responsibility also extends beyond personal accountability. True leaders take responsibility for their teams, their environment, and their culture. They create spaces where people feel safe to take risks, share ideas, and grow. They know that if the team fails, it reflects on them. Throw others under the bus to save themselves, they shield their people and shoulder the blame. In return, those people give loyalty, effort. Responsibility breeds responsibility. It's contagious. When a leader models accountability, it becomes the standard for everyone else. But when a leader avoids responsibility, it creates a culture of fear and avoidance. Workers mirror what leaders model. That's why the most powerful way to teach responsibility is to live it. A responsible leader doesn't just demand excellence, they demonstrate it. They set the tone through action, not instruction. Responsibility also means being proactive instead of reactive. Leaders don't wait for direction. They anticipate what needs to be done. They see a problem and take initiative before it becomes a crisis. Think ahead, act decisively, and own the outcome. Workers follow orders, leaders create momentum. This proactive sense of responsibility is what keeps teams moving forward even in uncertainty. It builds confidence in others because they know someone is thinking ahead, taking charge, and protecting the mission. Responsibility is also about moral and ethical integrity. Leaders are often faced with choices between what is easy and what is right. Taking responsibility means choosing what is right, even when no one is watching. It's doing the right thing not because it's expected, but because it's who you are. Ethical responsibility strengthens character, and character strengthens leadership. People might forget what you achieve, they will never forget how responsibly you handled your power. Irresponsible leaders may rise fast, but they fall faster because their foundation is built on convenience, not conscience. A responsible leader leaves behind not just results but respect. Responsibility also involves emotional resilience. The ability to carry the emotional weight of leadership without breaking under pressure. Leaders must manage their own emotions and the emotions of others. They must be the calm in the storm, the anchor when chaos hits. Doesn't mean they don't feel fear, doubt, or fatigue. It means they don't let those feelings dictate their decisions. They carry the emotional load so that others can stay focused and inspired. Responsibility often feels heavy because it requires sacrifice. It means putting the needs of the mission and the team before personal comfort. It means showing up even when you're tired, making decisions when you're uncertain, and standing firm when you're criticized. But the reward of responsibility is immense. It builds inner strength, respect, and legacy. Leaders who embrace responsibility grow in ways that others never do, because every challenge they face teaches them something new about their character. Responsibility also shapes how leaders use power. Power without responsibility becomes tyranny. Responsibility without power becomes frustration. True leadership balances the two. Leaders use their power to serve, not to dominate. They understand that authority is not a privilege. It's a trust. Responsibility keeps that power grounded in humility and purpose. It reminds leaders that they are not above the people they lead. They are accountable to them. A responsible leader earns loyalty, not through fear, through fairness. Responsibility is also about stewardship, taking care of what has been entrusted to you, whether it's a team, a project, or a vision. A responsible leader leaves things better than they found them. They don't exploit resources, they nurture them. They don't take credit for everything, they share it. They don't seek to look good. They seek to do good. In this sense, responsibility becomes a form of service. The greatest leaders are servants first. They lead not because they crave recognition, but because they feel responsible for creating positive change. Responsibility transforms leadership from position to purpose. It gives depth to success and meaning to achievement. To think like a leader, not a worker, you must stop seeing responsibility as a weight to bear and start seeing it as a gift to grow. Every responsibility you accept shapes your character, sharpens your discipline, and strengthens your influence. It teaches you to lead yourself before you lead others, because leadership always begins with self-responsibility, owning your time, your energy, your choices, and your attitude. Once you master that, you can lead others with authenticity and power. In the end, Jotun's leadership is not about having people depend on you. It's about making people capable and confident enough to take responsibility themselves. That is the ultimate legacy of a leader, creating more leaders through the power of responsibility. Chapter 11: Emotional intelligence is the unseen force that distinguishes exceptional leaders from ordinary ones, is the quiet power that governs how you manage yourself and how you connect with others. A worker might rely solely on technical skills or intellect. A leader understands that people are not moved by logic alone. They are moved by emotion. Leadership is not about commanding obedience. It is about inspiring hearts, understanding minds, and managing relationships with wisdom and empathy. Emotional intelligence, often called EQ, is the ability to recognize, understand, and manage your own emotions while also perceiving and influencing the emotions of others. It is what allows leaders to remain calm under pressure, to communicate effectively during conflict, to make decisions rooted in awareness rather than impulse. Without emotional intelligence, even the most talented leader can become unpredictable, connected, or destructive. Emotional intelligence begins with self-awareness, the ability to understand your emotions, triggers, strengths, and weaknesses. A leader who lacks self-awareness is like a captain sailing blind. They may steer confidently, but they have no idea where they're going. Self-awareness is not about self-criticism. It's about self-clarity. It's knowing when your pride is influencing your decisions, when your anger is clouding your judgment, or when your fear is holding you back. The moment you become aware of your emotional state, you gain control over it instead of being controlled by it. Workers often react emotionally, but leaders respond intentionally. That difference is what defines emotional maturity. Self-awareness leads to self-regulation, the discipline to manage your emotions instead of letting them dictate your behavior. It means staying composed when things go wrong, speaking with purpose when provoked, and making choices guided by reason and values rather than moods. A leader with strong self-regulation creates a stable emotional climate for their team. When you stay calm in chaos, others feel safe. When you panic, others crumble. Emotional control doesn't mean suppressing feelings, it means channeling them productively. Anger can drive courage, sadness can inspire empathy, and fear can sharpen awareness. But only when managed with intelligence. Leaders who cannot regulate their emotions often create toxic environments filled with tension, confusion, and fear. Great leaders, however, emotional balance to build trust, credibility, and respect. The next layer of emotional intelligence is motivation, not the superficial kind that fades after success, but the deep inner drive that comes from purpose. Emotionally intelligent leaders are motivated not by rewards, praise, or status, but by the vision they believe in. They don't wait for inspiration. They create it. Their energy is contagious because it comes from within. This kind of motivation pushes leaders to persevere through difficulty, to keep going when results are slow, remain optimistic even when facing setbacks. Workers often give up when obstacles arise because their motivation is external. Leaders push forward because their motivation is internal. Emotional intelligence keeps that inner fire alive. It reminds you why you started and helps you inspire others to believe in the mission as deeply as you do. A leader who stays passionate and positive, even in adversity, gives others strength. Optimism is not naivety, it's leadership courage. It's the belief that no matter how hard things get, there's always a way forward. Empathy is the heart of emotional intelligence, and perhaps the most powerful trait a leader can possess. It is the ability to feel what others feel, to see the world from their perspective, and to respond with compassion. Empathy is not weakness. It is wisdom. It allows you to connect deeply with others, to understand their needs and fears, and to lead them with humanity. A worker may focus on tasks, but a leader focuses on people. When people feel understood, they open up, trust you, and give their best effort. Empathy helps you see beyond performance and recognize potential. It helps you sense when someone is struggling, even if they don't say it. Offer support before frustration turns into failure. Empathetic leaders don't just listen to words, they listen to emotions. They know that silence can speak louder than speech, and a kind gesture can communicate more than 1,000 orders. Empathy builds loyalty and unity within teams. When a leader treats people as human beings rather than replaceable tools, they cultivate an environment where people feel safe to express ideas, take risks, and grow. And when people feel emotionally safe, innovation flourishes. Social awareness and relationship management are the final layers of emotional intelligence. Social awareness means reading the emotional tone of a room, understanding group dynamics, and sensing unspoken tension. It's knowing when to push and when to pause, when to speak and when to listen. A socially aware leader knows how to adapt their message to their audience and how to resolve conflict without escalating it. They are emotionally perceptive. They can tell when morale is low, when someone feels undervalued, or when the team needs encouragement. Relationship management, on the other hand, is about using that awareness to build strong, positive connections. It's the ability to influence, coach, and inspire others toward shared goals. A leader skilled in relationship management can turn disagreement into dialogue and competition into collaboration. They understand that leadership is not about commanding people. It's about connecting with them. Workers might see relationships as secondary, but leaders know they are essential. Every success in leadership flows through relationships. Emotional intelligence helps you build relationships, not through manipulation, but through authenticity. People follow leaders they feel connected to, not those they fear. Emotional intelligence also plays a crucial role in communication. A leader with high EQ doesn't just deliver information, they deliver understanding. They know how to choose words that build trust instead of defensiveness, and how to listen in a way that makes others feel valued. They understand tone, timing, and emotion, all the invisible factors that determine whether communication heals or harms. Workers may speak to be heard, but leaders communicate to create connection. Emotional intelligence teaches you that communication is not about being right. It's about being effective, about leading conversations with empathy, humility, and clarity. Leadership also demands emotional resilience, the ability to recover from stress, criticism, and failure without losing confidence. Emotionally intelligent leaders understand that setbacks are not signs of weakness, they are opportunities for growth. They don't allow rejection to harden them or success to blind them. They learn, adapt, and move forward. They know that emotions are powerful, but they must never overpower purpose. This resilience comes from emotional awareness and control. It allows leaders to stay grounded, no matter what happens. Workers might take things personally, leaders view them professionally. They separate emotion from ego and decision from reaction. Emotional intelligence, in essence, soul of leadership. It turns knowledge into wisdom, authority into influence, and teams into families. It's what helps leaders inspire trust, resolve conflict, and bring out the best in others. Without it, leadership becomes mechanical. With it, leadership becomes meaningful. The emotionally intelligent leader doesn't suppress emotion. They master it. They understand that people will forget what you said, but they will never forget how you made them feel. Emotional intelligence gives you the power to lead with heart, to turn workplaces into communities, to transform fear into faith. It allows you to balance strength with sensitivity, logic with compassion, and ambition with empathy. To think like a leader, not a worker, you must learn to lead not just with your mind, but with your heart. Because in the end, leadership is not about being in charge. It's about caring enough to bring out the best in those you lead. Emotional intelligence is that care in action. It is the art of leading people not by force, but by feeling. It is the silent strength that turns leaders into legends. Chapter 12: Decision Making is the heartbeat of leadership. The single most powerful ability that separates those who lead from those who wait to be led. Great leader, whether in business, politics, or life, is ultimately defined by the quality, speed, and conviction of their decisions. Workers are trained to follow instructions, but leaders are forged through the fire of choice. A worker waits for direction. A leader creates direction. Decision-making is not just about choosing between options. It's about shaping the future with courage and clarity. It demands wisdom, foresight, the ability to balance logic with intuition. A true leader does not always have perfect information, but they have the strength to act decisively despite uncertainty. They understand that indecision is a decision in itself, a choice to let life happen instead of leading it. The essence of leadership is responsibility. Responsibility begins with making decisions. Every decision a leader makes carries consequences, not only for themselves, but for those who follow. That weight can be intimidating, but it's also what gives leadership meaning. Great leaders don't shy away from this weight. They embrace it. They understand that the cost of hesitation is often greater than the cost of a wrong choice. Progress requires movement, and movement begins with a decision. Effective decision-making begins with clarity of purpose. A leader must first know what they stand for, what they are trying to achieve, and why it matters. Without a clear vision, even the smartest decision can lead to confusion. Vision acts as a compass. It helps leaders evaluate options not just by their immediate benefits, but by their alignment with long-term goals and values. Workers might make decisions based on convenience or compliance, but leaders decide based on consequence and consistency with purpose. Who knows their why never gets lost in the how. This clarity allows them to navigate complexity without losing focus. Decision making also requires gathering information and perspective, but a leader must know when to stop analyzing and start acting. Paralysis by analysis has killed more opportunities than bad decisions ever could. Great leaders gather facts, listen to diverse viewpoints, and consult those they trust. But they don't wait for perfect conditions. They know that leadership is often about making the best possible choice with the information available. Uncertainty is part of every great decision, and courage is what fills the gap between knowledge and action. Workers seek certainty before moving forward. Leaders move forward to create certainty. Another essential quality of decision making is discernment. The ability to see beyond the obvious. Not every choice that looks right is right. Some decisions are traps disguised as opportunities. A leader must learn to see through appearances and judge not only the short-term results, but also the long-term ripple effects. This discernment comes from experience, reflection, and emotional intelligence. The more you understand yourself, the clearer your judgment becomes. Emotionally reactive leaders make decisions that please the moment but destroy the future. Wise leaders, on the other hand, pause, think, act with balance between mind and heart. Decision-making is both an art and a science. It involves logic but also intuition. Intuition is the subconscious wisdom that arises from experience and awareness. It's that inner voice that whispers when something feels off, if you can't explain why. Great leaders trust that voice, but they also test it with reason. The key is balance. Too much emotion clouds judgment, too much logic kills instinct. A leader must learn to blend both to make decisions that are wise, not just smart. Courage plays a defining role in decision-making. Many people know what to do, but few have the courage to do it. Fear of failure, criticism, rejection paralyzes action. But leadership demands bravery. The willingness to stand by your convictions even when others doubt you. Every great decision will face opposition. A true leader listens to feedback but is not ruled by fear. They know that leadership is not about pleasing everyone. It's about doing what's right, even when it's unpopular. Courageous decision-making earns respect because people admire conviction, even if they disagree with the outcome. Leaders are remembered not for the decisions they avoided, but for the ones they dared to make. Courageous decision becomes a building block of trust and legacy. Fearful leaders create stagnation. Bold leaders create transformation. Decision-making also involves accountability. Once a choice is made, a leader must own it fully. Workers often distance themselves from the consequences of their decisions, but leaders embrace them. They don't hide behind excuses or shift blame when outcomes go wrong. They learn, adapt, and move forward. Accountability strengthens credibility. People don't expect leaders to always be right. They expect them to be responsible. Your full attention. A leader who admits when they're wrong and corrects course earns far more respect than one who hides mistakes behind pride. Leadership is not about never failing. It's about never avoiding responsibility. Every decision, right or wrong, becomes a lesson that refines your wisdom. The more decisions you make, the sharper your instincts become. Indecision, on the other hand, dulls intuition and erodes confidence. Who cannot decide soon loses the trust of those who follow. People crave certainty, even imperfect certainty, because it gives direction. Communication is another key component of decision-making. Once a leader makes a decision, they must communicate it with clarity and conviction. Unclear communication can turn even the best decision into confusion. A leader must explain not only what decision was made, but also why it was made. This transparency helps others understand the reasoning behind the action, reducing resistance and increasing trust. Workers execute decisions, leaders explain and inspire them. How you communicate your decision determines how it will be received. If you speak with confidence, others will believe. Speak with doubt, others will hesitate. Great leaders use communication not to impose decisions, but to align hearts and minds with purpose. Adaptability is another hallmark of effective decision-making. Leaders must understand that no decision is final, it's part of an evolving process. Circumstances change, information evolves, and flexibility is key. Stubborn leaders who refuse to adapt turn good decisions into bad outcomes. Wise leaders revisit, reassess, and refine their choices when necessary. Flexibility is not weakness. It's intelligence in motion, shows that the leader values progress more than ego. Decision-making is not about always being right. It's about always moving forward in the right direction. When leaders admit that a decision needs adjusting, it models humility and encourages a culture of continuous learning. Ethics also play a vital role in decision-making. Decision a leader makes sets a moral tone for their organization or community. Leaders must ask themselves, is this decision right, fair, and aligned with my principles? Power tempts people to make decisions that serve personal interests over collective good, but great leaders rise above temptation. They understand that leadership decisions impact lives, and integrity must guide every choice. Ethical decision-making builds a foundation of respect that lasts longer than any success achieved through shortcuts. Workers may focus on results. Leaders focus on doing what's right to achieve those results. In essence, decision-making defines leadership because it translates vision into reality. Every major turning point in life, business, or history has been born from a decision. A moment when someone chose to act rather than wait, to think like a leader, not a worker. If it is to understand that leadership is not about having all the answers. It's about having the courage to choose and the humility to learn. It's about facing uncertainty with conviction, mistakes with maturity, and outcomes with accountability. Decision-making is the process through which leaders shape destiny. The stronger your ability to decide, the greater your capacity to lead. A worker asks, "What should I do?" A leader asks, "What must be done?" That single question changes everything. The world does not remember those who hesitated. It remembers those who decided and dared to act. Chapter 13. Adaptability is the lifeblood of leadership. The ability to bend without breaking, to evolve without losing direction, thrive in the face of uncertainty. In a world that changes faster than ever before, adaptability is no longer optional. It is the defining skill of those who lead. Workers often fear change because it disrupts comfort, but leaders welcome change because it fuels growth. To think like a leader, not a worker, is to understand that leadership is not about staying the same. It's about continuously adjusting, learning, evolving. Adaptability is not weakness, it is strength in motion. It requires courage to let go of what was once right and embrace what is now necessary. World does not stop for those who resist change, it moves forward for those who adapt. Great leaders know that change is not their enemy. It is their greatest ally in progress. They do not cling to old methods simply because they worked once. They constantly seek new ways to improve, innovate, and stay relevant. The mindset of adaptability begins with openness. The willingness to see situations from new perspectives, to listen to new ideas, to accept that there is always something to learn. A rigid mind breaks under pressure, but a flexible mind bends and finds a way through. Leadership requires this mental agility, the ability to shift strategies while keeping the vision steady. Adaptability starts with awareness. A leader must be alert to the signs of change before they become crises. Change rarely arrives unannounced. It whispers through subtle shifts in the environment, the market, the team, or even in personal growth. The best leaders anticipate these whispers and prepare for them, rather than reacting in panic when they arrive. Adaptable leaders are proactive, not reactive. They stay informed, curious, and observant, knowing that opportunities often hide within disruptions. Workers see uncertainty as danger. Leaders see it as a doorway to innovation. To adapt effectively, a leader must also let go of ego. The belief that their way is always the best way resists change because it thrives on control, but adaptability demands humility. A humble leader is open to feedback, to being wrong, and to learning from anyone, regardless of rank or experience. The moment a leader believes they have nothing left to learn, their leadership begins to decay. Adaptability is the humility to say, "I don't know, but I can learn." It's the courage to start again, to rebuild, to reimagine. In a rapidly changing world, the ability to unlearn is just as important as the ability to learn. Many people fail to adapt not because they don't know enough, but because they refuse to let go of what they already know. Old habits, old systems, and old assumptions can become invisible prisons. Adaptable leaders are not prisoners of their past success. They understand that what worked yesterday may not work today. They are willing to unlearn and relearn. This doesn't mean abandoning core values. It means evolving the methods used to express them. A leader's vision must remain constant, but the path to achieving it must remain flexible. Adaptability also demands emotional resilience. The ability to remain calm and composed when everything around you is shifting. Change often brings discomfort, and discomfort breeds fear. Workers run from it, leaders confront it. Emotionally resilient leaders face change with steadiness and optimism. They see setbacks not as failures, but as lessons. They don't crumble under uncertainty, they grow through it. This mindset of resilience inspires others to stay strong even when times are tough. A leader's calm becomes the team's confidence. When others panic, adaptable leaders provide stability, not by pretending to have all the answers, by showing faith that answers will emerge. Adaptability also requires creativity, the power to think differently and find solutions where others see obstacles. A leader's ability to adapt is directly tied to their willingness to innovate. In every crisis, there are hidden opportunities for reinvention. Leaders who dare to experiment, to challenge norms, and to explore new approaches often discover breakthroughs. Creativity thrives in open-mindedness. Mindedness thrives in adaptability. The world's greatest innovations, technological, social, and organizational, have always come from leaders who dared to adapt when everyone else resisted. They refused to be limited by tradition or fear of failure. Adaptable leaders understand that mistakes are not signs of weakness. They are steps toward discovery. Each failure teaches what doesn't work and brings you closer to what does. Workers avoid failure. Leaders use it as fuel for transformation. Communication also plays a crucial role in adaptability. Change often creates uncertainty, and uncertainty breeds anxiety. It is the leader's responsibility to guide others through change with clear, honest, and inspiring communication. Adaptable leaders explain not only what is changing, but why it's necessary. They listen to concerns, acknowledge fears, provide reassurance without sugarcoating reality. People can handle change when they feel understood and supported. A leader's transparency builds trust, and trust makes transition smoother. The more open and honest the leader, the more united the team becomes in facing challenges. Adaptability, therefore, is not just an internal skill, it's a collective strength that grows through trust and shared vision. Another important dimension of adaptability is strategic flexibility, the ability to pivot quickly when circumstances demand it. Leaders who cling to one plan, one structure, or one idea risk becoming obsolete. The world rewards those who can change direction without losing momentum. Adaptable leader knows when to persist and when to pivot. They are not afraid to abandon strategies that no longer serve the mission. This requires not only intelligence but courage. It's easy to stick with familiar patterns, even when they stop working. It takes bravery to make a shift. Great leaders measure progress, gather feedback, and adjust strategies regularly. They understand that flexibility is not chaos. It's controlled change guided by purpose. Adaptability also shapes how a leader manages people. Every generation, every situation requires a slightly different approach. What motivates one person may discourage another. Leader who adapts their leadership style to suit the needs of their team shows emotional intelligence and wisdom. They don't treat everyone the same way. They treat everyone fairly, in the way that works best for them. Adaptability in leadership is about adjusting your tone, strategy, and support based on the context. It's about leading humans, not robots. Leaders who fail to adapt often lose connection with their people. Those who adapt build lasting loyalty and trust. The greatest leaders in history were masters of adaptation. They evolved with time, embraced new technologies, listened to new ideas, stayed relevant through constant transformation. Whether in war, business, or social change, they succeeded not because they were the strongest, but because they were the most adaptable. Adaptability ensures survival, but more importantly, it ensures growth. A leader who adapts learns to turn uncertainty into opportunity, resistance into resilience, and failure into wisdom. The more adaptable you are, the more unstoppable you become, because no challenge can corner you. You always find a way through. In the end, adaptability is not just a leadership skill, a life philosophy. It teaches you to stay fluid, humble, and forward-focused. To think like a leader, not a worker, is to see change not as a threat, but as a teacher. It is to realize that growth lives outside your comfort zone, and that every challenge carries within it the seed of evolution. A leader who resists change eventually becomes a follower of it. A leader who adapts becomes a creator of it. Your full attention. The future belongs not to those who hold on tightly to what was, but to those who are brave enough to shape what will be. Adaptability is that bravery. It is the art of staying steady in motion, the wisdom of changing without losing your core, the secret weapon that allows true leaders not just to survive change, but to lead it. 14. Vision is the soul of leadership, the invisible force that guides decisions, shapes destiny, and transforms dreams into reality. Without vision, leadership is blind. It moves but has no direction. It works but has no purpose. A worker focuses on the task in front of them, but a leader looks beyond the horizon. Vision is the ability to see not only what is, but what could be. It is the power to imagine a better future and inspire others to move toward it, even when the path is unclear. To think like a leader, not a worker, is to cultivate the art of seeing possibilities where others see problems, opportunities where others see obstacles. True vision is not just a dream. It is a disciplined picture of the future, backed by strategy, courage, and belief. Turns ordinary people into pioneers and organizations into legacies. Every great movement, invention, and revolution began with one person's vision, someone who refused to accept the world as it was and dared to imagine what it could become. That is the essence of leadership, to see the invisible and make it visible. A leader's vision gives purpose to their actions and direction to their followers. Without it, even the most talented teams lose motivation, as they cannot see the meaning behind their effort. Vision gives work significance. It connects everyday actions to a larger cause. Workers need instructions, but leaders need inspiration. A leader's job is not just to manage tasks but to ignite belief. When people catch the vision, they no longer work because they have to, they work because they want to. They see themselves as part of something bigger than their job description. That transformation, from compliance to commitment, happens only through vision. A leader without vision is like a traveler without a map. They may move, but they will go in circles. Vision gives leadership its compass. It defines the why behind every what. The clearer the vision, the stronger the focus. Vision is born in the mind but lives in the heart. It begins with imagination, but it grows through conviction. Many people can dream, can believe deeply enough to pursue their dream relentlessly. Vision requires faith, the kind of faith that sees light when everything is dark. A visionary leader must be willing to walk alone at first, to stand firm when others doubt, and to endure criticism from those who can't see what they see. Often need proof before believing. Leaders believe before there is proof. Visionary leadership means holding on to your dream even when logic says it's impossible. It's about nurturing that inner fire that keeps burning no matter how cold the world becomes. Every great leader, from innovators like Steve Jobs to reformers like Martin Luther King Jr., faced disbelief before success. What sustained them was vision. They saw the end before the beginning and held that picture so vividly that others eventually saw it too. However, vision without action is illusion. A true leader doesn't just dream, they build. Vision must be translated into strategy, strategy into consistent effort. The ability to turn vision into reality separates idealists from leaders. It's easy to talk about change, hard to organize it. Visionary leaders break big dreams into achievable steps, guiding people from concept to completion. They understand that progress is built piece by piece. Every small action today contributes to the larger picture tomorrow, gives patience meaning. It reminds leaders that long-term success requires short-term discipline. Workers often chase immediate results, but leaders think in decades. They plant seeds that may not bloom in their lifetime, but they plant them anyway, knowing that their vision will outlive them. Also requires clarity. A vague dream cannot inspire others. It must be specific enough to be imagined and shared. A leader must be able to articulate their vision in a way that others can see themselves in it. Communication turns private vision into public mission. When a leader speaks with passion, conviction, and clarity, their words create pictures in people's minds, and those pictures move hearts. A leader's language shapes the future. It must not only inform but inspire. Great leaders don't just describe where they're going, make people feel the journey. They speak in a way that stirs purpose, because they know emotion drives action. Workers may respond to orders, but followers respond to vision. To sustain vision, a leader must also have foresight, the ability to anticipate future trends, challenges, and opportunities. Foresight is what keeps vision alive and relevant. A visionary leader doesn't just react to change, they predict it and prepare for it. They think ahead, plan ahead, and act ahead. They see the curve before it comes. This forward-thinking mindset allows them to position their people and organization for success, even in uncertain times. Visionary leaders are not fortune tellers, but they are excellent observers. They study patterns, listen deeply, stay alert to the subtle shifts in culture, technology, and human behavior. They don't wait for the future to happen. They build it. Also demands resilience. Every great vision will be tested by time, doubt, and difficulty. The path to progress is never straight. It's full of obstacles that will try to shake your belief. A visionary leader must hold the vision steady through storms. Workers might abandon the goal when things get tough, but leaders endure. They understand that every setback is a setup for growth. They adapt their plans but never their purpose. Vision gives them strength to persist when others quit. It becomes the North Star that keeps them centered when everything else is chaotic. That's why vision is not just an idea. It's an anchor. It reminds the leader who they are, what they stand for, and why they began. Great vision also extends beyond self. It is not about personal ambition, but collective transformation. Leaders' vision always benefits others. It uplifts, unites, and empowers. When your vision serves only you, it dies with you. When it serves others, it becomes immortal. Visionary leaders think generationally, not transactionally. They measure success not just by what they achieve, but by what they inspire others to continue. They understand that leadership is a relay, not a race. Their job is to pass the torch brighter than they received it. The greatest legacy of a leader is not the empire they build, the vision they leave behind. To nurture vision, a leader must cultivate imagination, courage, and consistency. Imagination allows you to dream bigger, allows you to pursue it against the odds, and consistency allows you to make it real, step by step. Vision is the intersection of these three. It begins as a whisper in your soul, a possibility only you can hear. And through courage and consistency, it becomes a reality that others can see. Workers wait for instruction, leaders create direction. Workers see the present, leaders design the future. That is the essence of visionary leadership, to bring tomorrow into today. In the end, vision is what gives leadership meaning. Titles fade, achievements age, but vision endures. It is the one thing that can outlast the leader themselves. To think like a leader, not a worker, is to live with vision. To wake each day not just to survive, but to build something that matters. To see beyond the noise of now and focus on the symphony of what's possible. Vision gives life direction, passion purpose, and leadership soul. It is the spark that ignites innovation, the light that guides teams through darkness, and the promise that turns effort into legacy. A leader without vision may move fast, but a leader with vision moves forever. Chapter 15 Legacy is the ultimate measure of leadership. It is not about what you achieve while you are here, but what continues because you were here. Great leader understands that their work, influence, and vision are temporary vessels for a permanent impact. To think like a leader, not a worker, is to see beyond personal success and focus on creating something that endures. Workers think about the next paycheck. Leaders think about the next generation. Legacy is not built in a day, It is built every day through choices, principles, and the lives you touch. Is the invisible footprint you leave on people, ideas, and the world. A leader's legacy is not carved in stone monuments or written in history books alone. It is inscribed in the hearts of those they have inspired, empowered, transformed. The essence of leadership is not domination but influence, and legacy is influence that outlasts time. It is the continuation of your purpose through others, the echo of your voice in future actions, the light of your example guiding those who come after you. To build a legacy, a leader must first define what truly matters. Many people chase recognition, wealth, or power, believing those things will secure their legacy, but those are fleeting. Legacy is not about what you have, but what you give. It is not about personal glory, but about the difference you make. The greatest leaders are remembered not for their titles, but for their transformation. They ask themselves, what will remain when I am gone? What values will I leave behind? Who will be better because of my leadership? Those questions separate leaders from laborers. Workers seek immediate reward, but leaders seek lasting significance. To build a legacy is to build meaning. It requires intention, consistency, and purpose. Means acting today with tomorrow in mind, shaping every decision as if it will echo for years, because in truth, it will. Legacy begins with values. It is impossible to leave something meaningful if your leadership lacks moral foundation. Integrity, humility, compassion, and courage are the pillars upon which legacies are built. The world does not remember leaders for their convenience, but for their convictions. Those who stand firm in their principles, even when it costs them, create an example that inspires others to do the same. A leader's legacy is measured not by the number of followers they had, but by the number of leaders they created. True leaders multiply themselves. They mentor, teach, and empower others to rise. Every great legacy is a chain of influence, one leader lighting the path for another. A leader who keeps knowledge to themselves dies with it. A leader who shares it lives forever through others. Building a legacy also requires consistency between vision and action. Many people have good intentions, but only those who act on them create lasting impact. Legacy is not about occasional greatness. It's about sustained commitment. It is built in the quiet hours of discipline, the unseen sacrifices, the choices made when no one is watching. Workers perform when supervised. Leaders persist when unseen. They stay true to their purpose when applause fades. Legacy demands patience because meaningful change takes time. It is not a sprint but a marathon, one that requires endurance and unwavering dedication. A leader must be willing to sow seeds without immediately seeing the harvest. That is the true test of leadership. The willingness to invest in a future you may never fully witness. A strong legacy is also rooted in service. Leadership is not about being at the top. It's about lifting others up. The most enduring legacies come from leaders who made life better for others, who served with sincerity rather than ruled with authority. When people remember you, they will not recall your profits or possessions. They will remember how you made them feel, how you helped them grow, and how you inspired them to believe in themselves. Legacy is emotional as much as it is practical. It's about the human connection that leadership creates. The best leaders make others feel valued, seen. They ignite the potential in others, and watch it burn brighter than their own. That is how greatness continues. Through empowerment, not control. To build a legacy, a leader must also master the art of succession. Many leaders fail not because they lacked vision, because they never prepared others to carry it forward. Legacy demands foresight to identify and develop future leaders who will continue the mission. Great leaders are not afraid to make themselves replaceable, they are proud to. They understand that leadership is not about being irreplaceable, but about being remembered for enabling others to thrive. A selfish leader hoards power, a visionary leader transfers it. They create systems, structures, and cultures that continue functioning with excellence even after they're gone. True legacy is institutional, not individual. It's embedded in the people and principles that remain. Another essential part of legacy is courage. The courage to stand for what is right, even when it's unpopular. The world changes not through comfort, through courage. Every enduring legacy was born in defiance of fear. Leaders who dared to challenge convention, speak truth, act boldly often faced opposition, but their bravery became timeless. Workers avoid conflict, leaders face it with conviction. They understand that comfort never creates history. Legacy requires the willingness to take risks for something greater than yourself. To fight battles not just for your benefit, but for the benefit of others. That courage leaves an indelible mark, inspiring future generations to be brave in their own pursuits. Reflection is also critical in building legacy. Leaders must periodically step back and evaluate their journey. Are their actions aligned with their purpose? Are they living by the values they preach? Self-awareness strengthens legacy because it keeps leaders authentic. When a leader leads from truth, their influence becomes pure. May forget what you said or did, but they never forget how genuine you were. Authenticity creates trust, and trust sustains legacy. The most powerful legacies are not created through manipulation or force, but through truth and respect. When you lead with authenticity, your legacy becomes a mirror of your character, a reflection of who you were at your core. A leader must also understand that legacy is not about perfection. It's about persistence. No one builds a flawless journey. Mistakes, failures, tours are part of every great leader's story. What defines legacy is not the absence of error, but the ability to rise above it, learn from it, use it to inspire others. People connect more deeply with leaders who are human. Those who fail but keep going, who fall but get up stronger. That perseverance becomes a message to others that greatness is not reserved for the perfect, but for the persistent. In the end, legacy is the sum of your influence, your integrity, and your intention. It is what people continue to feel, say, and do because of your example. To think like a leader, not a worker, is to live with legacy in mind. To realize that every action today writes the history of tomorrow. Leadership is temporary, but legacy is eternal. You may leave your position, your title, or your company, but if you've led with purpose, your influence will continue long after your presence fades. Legacy is the bridge between your life and eternity. It ensures that your story does not end when you do. So lead wisely, serve selflessly, and build boldly. For the mark you leave behind is the true measure of your leadership.